Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
You know, as you go through life, you start to hear stories about people. I don't want to go so far as to say, well, they're urban legends or anything like that. But you hear, hey, if you know this person, you really need to meet this person. This person's great. You got to talk to this person. And often it's like, okay, they sound great. I don't know, if you don't know them, you can't introduce me. I don't know, what I'm going to do. But recently, I was introduced to Bob Littell. Now, I've heard of Bob for a long time, and Bob's got this concept called net weaving, which we're going to talk about today. Bob's here with me, but Bob spent most of his career in the financial services industry, wearing multiple senior level hats, including chief marketing officer for two companies, but for the last 25 years he's been writing, speaking, and training about a word and a concept he calls net weaving, which known globally as the business version of paying it forward. And we heard networking. Networking is very similar, but a little different. So, Bob, welcome to the program.
Well, gosh, I'm really glad to be here, Frank. I've been hearing about you too, so the feeling's mutual.
Well, thank you. As I indicated before we hit record, this is episode 800. Hey. So, yeah, you know what? I didn't. It wasn't like I was holding 800 for you. It's just God worked the way God worked, and you're on episode 800. So it's Bob Berg was 100. I'm trying to think who was 200. There've been it just works out. I get special people on those shows. So let's talk about net weaving. Where did this come from? How do you define it?
Well, let me tell the story, because it's really more interesting than just telling you, and I'll get into what it is. But I used to go to large networking meetings where people were roaming around, having short, superficial conversations only so long as they could identify, was I the best prospect they're going to find today? And hand out a business card, or when they realized I wasn't, they didn't want to give a business card to somebody obviously they're never going to do business with. So they then graze on to their next their next prospect.
Yep.
Well, what I used to love doing is I'd come into that large room and I'd kind of go over to the side and I'd kind of just stand there for a while and watch the activity in the room. And I've got a pretty good sense for people. And so I would really look for someone, in some cases, might even be sitting over by themselves. Or maybe in a group that the group looked to be kind of high energy, good, just get a good feeling. So I'd go over, and especially if it was a group conversation, usually, often, especially if it was a group friends, because in networking events, it's crazy how many people just hang out just with their own friends, because to a certain extent, they don't want to expose themselves.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I would come up to the group and I'd kind of, hey, mind if I join into the conversation? And once again, often it was kind of small talk. Well, I would kind of listen, and then I would usually try and figure something that would take the conversation in a totally new direction. And in net weaving terms, I call that inspiring meaningful dialogue, meaning that I'd ask a question that might be current events. It could be, today I wouldn't do it with politics, that's for sure. But it might be, I just read an interesting article about ... Are you aware of all of that? Or if I had heard about an industry that somebody was already in, I have a concept called GLP, global, local, personal. And if you were that person, I'd say, Frank, I don't know anything really much about the widget industry, but you being a high level individual in that industry, could you take a second and kind of tell me, what do you think the 2 or 3 major challenges that the widget industry is facing today? And in your own company, the ABC Widget Company, are you struggling with those same challenges, or have you guys found some secrets and ways you might be willing to share that you've come around? And frankly, is that what you struggle with in your own job?
Right.
So the global, the industry wise, then your own company, and then person. And it works with any industry, any concept. And it's just a great way to also learn about industries that you currently knew nothing about. So the first step was to have those meaningful conversations. The next step, though, for someone, and I always narrowed it down to only 1 or 2 or 3 people at the most, that really interested me the most. And the key, of course, to any good networking event is follow-up. And 2 words that I really harp on are the difference between following up and following through.
Mm-hmm.
Following up, I define as a time-related concept. Within 24 to 48 hours, you reach out by email, by phone, by text. Just say, Josh, really enjoyed meeting you and look forward to getting together. And in this case, now today with Zoom, it's just so easy to just send that or say, I'd like to learn more about you. Let's just set up a one-on-one Zoom call. So that's kind of the second step. But the third step is the most powerful. And that is now, after you've gotten to know the person from that one-on-one Zoom call, you now, in your own mind, go through your mental Rolodex and you say, who do I know who might be a good person that this person would really benefit meeting? And it could be business-wise, or by now, this just may be somebody who you've grown to really like a lot. And you've got another friend that's kind of the same way, or they share a hobby, or you found out, because in many cases, you find people in common that you never would have guessed if you hadn't made that connection. So the most powerful form of net weaving, and frankly, as I've told you before, Frank, I gave up speaking and writing on net weaving for 5 or 6 years because I'd become disillusioned of how few people were hosting meetings back when they all had to be in person because of the logistics involved and the time involved. So real quick, the 3 skill sets of net weaving, once you're trying to make that match, and now once you are hosting the meeting, you're now using your 3 skill sets. Number 1 is you're being a connector of other people with their needs, problems, or opportunities in mind. You're an information and a resource provider. So you become the go-to person. You become the person they call when they say, Frank, gosh, I know this isn't anything you do, but gosh, you've got such an incredible network. Here's my problem. Do you have any suggestions about who I should call? And the third one, which really is in line with the first 2, is you've got to have a trusted resource network. And that trusted resource network is not just made up of somebody who who's in the roofing business or somebody who's a carpenter. This is somebody who either you have personally vetted or used, or somebody who comes to you from somebody who you totally trust and respect from their perspective as well. So that's kind of net weaving in a nutshell, Frank.
Yeah, no, it's providing value. The question that you asked the person, I find that to be, well, I guess my commentary on that is you're not looking to pitch them on anything. And a lot of times people are like, okay, what's that question I can ask that's going to, what kind of ad specialty things do you use? Oh, I wonder what this person does. You sell ad specialties? What a shock, And that's not what you're doing. It's like, it's the term I'll give it is meaningful small talk, right?
It is. Well,
Yeah.
what I'm doing is I'm actually looking for interesting, successful people that I can learn from as much as that I can give to.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love the concept. What, and I'll have you comment on this. I'm continually amazed that I keep running into people who are anything but that. You
Yeah.
know?
And there are a lot of disguised net weavers that who come across just like one fellow that comes to mind. He'd come up to me and he'd say, "Bob, gosh, I just love your net weaving concept. And boy, I've been doing a lot of it, but business has been kind of slow a little lately. Do you have some leads that you might be able to give me?"
Yeah.
It's and believe me, Frank, net weaving is not an attack on more traditional what's in it for me networking. You've got to do both.
Yeah.
In fact, in a book summary that we did by Adam Grant, he talks about three categories: givers, takers, and matchers. And one of his great points is matchers are people who, when you give, you are hoping, not totally expecting, but you're hoping something is going to immediately come from what you're doing. Takers are obvious. They are ones who are taken, and they don't care if anything comes back to you at all. And of course, givers can either be one of two people. They can either be givers who are what I call strategically giving, meaning they are giving in a way that they believe they may increase the chances of things coming back around by virtue of their action. And I like to call that enlightened self-interest. Their motives are totally to help the other person, but they have such a strong belief in the concept of what goes around comes around, that they do it. And in many cases, and I've got so many stories, and I know you have too, of where those ripple effects from having done that have come back around in so many different ways.
Yeah. I love that book. And I was on that program that you did, that conversation. What I have told people or try to explain that is I say, okay, I give them a hypothetical. If you had a lottery ticket, $1 million lottery ticket, but the catch is that you could not keep the money. You had to give it away. Who would you give it to? And they're totally lost at that point. But I kind of give the answer. I said you would give it to somebody in your community who would invest it back in the community. So it would be something that would benefit you directly, or family, or whatever, the neighborhood, whatever. That's what you would do. You wouldn't give it to the person who would, hit the road and you never see them again.
Right. Well, Frank, you reminded me of something you said at the beginning, that net weaving is known globally as the business version of Pay It Forward. Let me tell you how all of that came about. When I first started speaking in net weaving, it was about 1999 when I was really on the speaking circuit a lot. And I had just created the concept. And now remember, I was hosting is the most powerful form. So I was hosting a lot of meetings. And what I was discovering when I would bring these two people together, and I'd be the moderator and the facilitator, and I'd help them discover things about themselves that neither of them had known, find new people, or find people they knew in common that they never would have known, and hopefully find ways to help each other. Well, I was finding out that in 8 to 9 out of 10 meetings, towards the end of the meeting, one or both of them would look at me and say, "Bob, this has just been great. Gosh, we found ways to help each other. We've discovered people we know in common we never would have known. How can we help you?"
Yeah.
And I'd look at them funny and I'd say, "Why don't each of you Pianto?" And they'd look at me funny, just like you are, quizzitively looking and saying, "What do you mean, Pianto?" "Yeah, Piontto. You pass it on to two others and do just what I've done."
Yeah.
And right about that time, 1999, is when movie Pay It Forward came out. And so I kept running into people say, Bob, haven't you seen the movie Pay It Forward? I hadn't. So I saw the movie. Then I read the book, bought the book that Catherine Ryan Hyde, the author, wrote, called her up, told her about net weaving, and we became friends. And I became the first president of the Pay It Forward Foundation. And we did a lot of projects where kids would submit their project of how they were going to inspire people to pay it forward, and that's kind of how and we're still good friends today. She's an author. She's way past to Pay It Forward. She's just a writer, but we had just developed such a great relationship.
Yeah, you were touching on it earlier that it's well, let me put it this way. It's easy to declare you're a net weaver. It's easy to declare you're a giver. Talk is cheap, but and I run into people all the time. I run into people, I'm all about giving, I'm all about networking. And they are about networking. They're matchers. Most people are matchers. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. You just, as a net weaver, as a giver, you just need to be guarded about it, and realize, okay, who am I dealing with? And somebody asked me this question the other day. It's like, how do you know? It's like, I just get a sense from people.
Yeah, I do. Yep, same thing.
Yeah,
same thing.
It just, and I'll have a conversation. I'm kind of guarded at the beginning, like our mutual friend Mike, the young man I introduced you to.
Yes.
When I first met him, it's like, okay, I don't know. And then there was something in the conversation was like, okay, this guy is legit, and I'm not wrong. He's legit. It doesn't mean he's going to solve everyone's problems, but he's well ahead of where you and I were at that same age.
Oh my gosh. I'll tell you, if I can help him at this point of his career at age 27, and with as passionate as he is about it, and to help him steer away, he could easily become a doormat because he's so passionate about giving. And part of what I hope to do in work that I'm going to be actually just doing, because I am so fond of helping young people who have that are already aimed in that direction, he will be a superstar.
Yeah.
And gosh, I've had several young people. One who I'll never forget, who was president of the Georgia State MBA club. And he and I just became great friends. I connected him with first a bar where he redid their whole, not only security system, but their whole technology system. Right. Then a friend of mine who needed somebody who spoke fluent German hired him for a project, and he turned into the superstar for the entire company. So yeah, it's so much fun when you have those kind of stories.
So be a connector, be a provider of information and resources, and build a trusted resource
network.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and what I find about certainly the third thing, the resource network, is it is an asset, and it's an asset that appreciates in value.
Oh, yes.
Completely. Because over time, those people are getting smarter. They're picking up, I seldom call the connectors that I know. Well, I never hear, I haven't talked to anybody in the years since we spoke. No, they've talked to hundreds of people. And you have a network that I don't have. Now, John Marshall introduced us, and we have some crossover. Bob Berg is somebody, but there are just tons of people out there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, there's another thing that you just tickled my mind with, and Adam Grant brings this out in his book as well, but I had, before I'd ever seen that Adam touched on it, I've been harping on it. A Stanford professor named Granovetter, years and years ago, did a lot of research on the idea that he called weak ties. And the best way when I explain it is to imagine that you're looking at a target, and with three circles, with the smallest circle being the bullseye. And the bullseye represents your primary network. Those are people that you're dealing with either on a daily basis or at least a weekly basis. And depending on the size of your network, in mine, it's about 10 people that we're in close touch with. And you're now in that circle, like it or not.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so that's the primary circle. The secondary circle are people that come in and out of that primary circle on every month, maybe every quarter. But they're people that are still in there, but they're just not in that primary. Granovator pointed out to the third circle. And the third circle and Adam Grant divides these into two groups. And I really think this is important. Weak ties are the ones who at one point in time, years and years ago, you had a relationship with. Not necessarily a good one, but if you'd call them on the telephone, they'd know who you are, okay? Yep. Adam Grant separates the weak ties into ones that, and I'm drawing a blank on his term, but they are the ties. They're warmer ties instead of weak ties.
Yeah, he refers to them as dormant ties.
Dormant, thank you. Yeah. Good,
yeah.
Way to go. And so those dormant ties are ones who you really did have a good relationship with at one time, yep. But you've drifted apart.
Yep.
And what his research showed was that reaching out to, especially to a dormant tie who you had that good relationship with, and now you've drifted apart months, years later, that they will not only become friends again, but in many cases, they will become your best clients, your best prospects. And believe me, that has been very true with me. And every week, I start my week with listing on my to-do sheet at least three people. Now, where do I get them from? I go back in LinkedIn. I have emails going back 20 years. So I'll just somehow go back through and look and say, gosh, wow, that is really going to be a good person to reach out to.
Yeah.
And I promise you, anyone in this audience who starts doing that on a weekly basis, you will be amazed at the results.
Well, and I talk about that when I get out and talk about dormant ties. And I talk about a friend I had in college if there was a party, he was at the forefront of planning it, right? His name was Bert. Bert's a great guy. We were fraternity brothers, played football together. And we all figured, you know what? Bert would just go on and run a bar when he was done. And he did. He started his first job, he ran a bar. And it's so easy to dismiss our dormant ties as, well, Bert's just running a bar. But the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would say, is Bert realized at one point he wanted to run a bar for the rest of his life. He went and got a PhD. He did better than all of us. And so that, for me, that's a clear indication that there are people we lose touch with. They're not stuck in place. I'm not stuck in place, right? I keep meeting people. Why would anyone else? And so there is a tremendous power in reaching out to these people and rekindling. They already know us. They already like us. They already trust us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So let's shift gears here. This has gone fast. Net weaving, what are you up to? How can people help you?
Well, let me give a short story. I mentioned that I kind of took a break from talking and speaking on net weaving because of the disillusionment that I'd run into from people who were not hosting meetings, as I just accentuated was the most powerful form. But a fellow who'd originally done my website came to me and said that he had come across a very interesting new platform that he could create a course on net weaving. And so I decided that we would do it together. And as we got to the planning stage, it became apparent that he wanted to monetize things. He was looking at this, and I'd been kind of his financial support for about 20 years. And I said, you know what, Mel, this is not where I am at this stage of my life, but if you can find a way to make it so that I still feel that it's primarily net weaving, I'll let you show me what you got. And he actually completed something called Net Weavers Connect. But what happened is after we got it all done, you go to the site and you take a quiz to see how you score currently as a net weaver. But then under Net Weavers Connect, you would register and you would upgrade and you would pay, and then that would give you access to the rest of the platform. And it had a social media component that would build a network that you could either make and have private conversations or public. And after a while, something just hit me, and I said, you know, this is still not what I want. You're wanting this to be monetized. I'm wanting it to be a free resource for anyone who just wants to use it, because I believe that what will come from this is I will get talks. I will get invited to talk and be paid for speeches. I will be, in some cases, asked to write articles, which I love to do. So that's all I want. And so we've now created a separate platform called Net Weavers Inspire. And incidentally, now there was also a problem that he couldn't figure out a way to do it without registering. And I said, listen, I don't even want people to worry about registering and getting on another email list.
Yeah.
So now when you go to the website, it already shows the name as Pro Net Weaver. And then all you do to make sure that you stay in Net Weavers Inspire, because you can, at one point, you can switch and go to Net Weavers Connect. But when you stay with Net Weavers Inspire, you just use Pro Net Weaver also as the password. And so what that does is you take the quiz. Then if you like the whole concept and you want to grow more, you take the course, 11 lessons, and you become certified as a Net Weaver diplomat. Then you also have access to all 50 plus of the book summaries that great business book authors like Adam Grant, Malcolm Gladwell, Dan Pink, Jeffrey Gitomer, just a great Bob Berg, just a great group of business book writers who've all given me permission. So all those summaries are available. And then there's both of my books, The Heart and Art of Net Weaving and Raising Your R&R Factor, How Referable and Recommendable. Those are all downloadable for free too. But I have two missions left, and I'll end with this. One mission is to spread the concept of net weaving around the world. And the great news is this platform, Net Weavers Inspired, can be translated into over 100 different languages. So that's object one, is to just spread the word and inspire people to become, or to at least expand their networking, net weaving. The second one is, though, also at the end of the website, there are several what I call ripple effect stories. They are stories where I've hosted a meeting, where I've offered my resources to someone gratuitously, and how amazing things have happened as a result of it. Some that have come around to me almost immediately, but some that have happened over and over years. And one of those is when I helped a lady who was at a national conference, who was a high executive with Xerox. And as a result of kind of promoting the incredible connection that she made with General Norman Schwarzkopf and writing it up and getting it spread around the world, how Xerox printed the book, The Heart and Art of Net Weaving, and all $20 from the sale of the book went to charities. And we raised several $100,000 from that. And incidentally, if you buy that book online, it's not because I sold it. It's because somebody sold it back to Amazon.
Okay.
So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it, Frank.
Sounds great. The best way to connect with you is through netweavinginternational.com. What's that?
Or directly at chiefnetweaver@gmail.com.
Okay. All right.
Or on LinkedIn, anyway.
Yep. I appreciate your time. I appreciate getting to know you.
Frank, I look forward to staying in touch and creating some ripple effect stories together.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.